the Nazi apologist and Nazi adjacent faction of the conservative movement has been in complete disarray over the last few days. Ben Shapiro went into America Fest, the Turning Point USA conference, told them to their face what they are, what they're doing, and what it means for the future. And they have been scrambling for a response. It really is pretty special to see not just the talks that followed Ben Shapiro, again, people who presumably had an idea of what they were going to say on stage, completely threw it all out just to respond to Ben, and people who weren't there also responding to Ben. But it's if you look, I mean, I've been looking on X. Very few arguments are actually made. People are calling Ben all sorts of names, calling him irrelevant while talking about him, and yeah, various insults. No real substance, which of course you wouldn't expect from these people. But it also brought to light just how significant this growing faction within the movement is. It's probably the bigger faction at the moment. And yeah, there's a lot to say. We talked about it yesterday. There's a lot more to say. We're gonna go through some clips. We have a full house. We have a reality show style Daily Objective today. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by Alex, James Valiant, and you probably know him from his role in the critically acclaimed film No Holds Barred, but he's been in other things as well. And he is the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, Mark Pellegrino. Mark, why are you not on stage at the Turning Point USA conference?
Well, I don't have any political ambitions, and I think anybody who does have political ambitions in the 21st century, it should be an automatic disqualifier for office. So if you say you want to be the president of the United States, you should be kicked out of Washington immediately. That's it. I prefer the George Washington thing, where power is bestowed upon you by those who trust you and think you could do the job of carrying the interests of the people on your shoulders. Otherwise, get out, get out.
Did you? I know you've been busy. Did you get to catch Ben Shapiro's talk? We'll talk about the
I
responses.
I did. I did. I caught his talk.
Thoughts?
I thought it was great. I thought it gave the Republicans the spanking they needed to hear. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that they're actually going to take this moment as the moment they need to introspect and look inside and see if there are some reforms that need to happen and that they are possibly moving in the wrong direction. I think they're trying to pretend that there's a unified front and present that to the world as opposed to looking inside and saying, is Christian nationalism really the direction we want to go, or is Ben's classical liberalism, the traditional thing that the GOP was supposed to conserve, is that the proper way to go? So right now they're in an identity crisis and they're moving in the neurotic direction of not introspecting and not checking their premises, but flailing around attempting to justify why they're irrational and insane right now.
Alex, I've seen it pointed out on Twitter that Ben Shapiro mentioned Israel in his talk 0 times, and everybody else is mostly talking about Israel. At some point, unfortunately, on this show, we will get to Steve Bannon, I don't know which clips Daniel, the producer, has, but I remember him starting with something like "Nobody supports Israel as much as I do." And then of course he goes into what he really thinks. But yeah, Alex, what is this really all about?
I couldn't disagree with you more, Razi, about them being a popular faction and the most powerful part of the movement. I mean, I thought that this was, it was a flailing, pathetic, irrational, emotional, crashing out response that they had. I mean, it was so unspeakably reactionary. And many of the people that I do listen to, people like Dana Loesch, people like from the Mark Levin from FDD. I mean, people who are serious, I would say, movers and shakers. you know, they're laughing at this. They're saying, but who are these lightweights? I mean, you know, like Tucker was supposed to be, I mean, Tucker is the son of this, you know, phenomenal historic broadcaster who won a Pulitzer Prize. And Tucker just gets up there and he wings it like it's the, you know, the 12th grade debate or something. And it was just, you know, he's going, you know, I'm just saying we're going to go to war with Venezuela. I mean, it's like, I mean, all of the mannerisms that he has. And yeah, so I really think that this is actually the, I mean, when Alex Jones is taking time out of his day to tell everybody that he's doing a special on debunking your lies from your conspiracy about, you know, about Charlie Kirk, you're in serious trouble. Okay. Like, I mean, and Candace, I even hear her, she's veering into you know, that, I mean, the identity politics. She's Harriet Tubman now. She's Harriet Tubman, really. She's saying, oh, this is a slave lynching. Huh, you know, if I was getting paid $10 million a year to be for if that's the kind of slavery you're talking about, you know, hook me up with some of that slavery. You know, $10 million a year to like broadcast my opinions on your show. Incredible, these people. So Razzie, sorry, but I don't buy it.
Well, so James, I agree with Alex. They are lightweights, but that doesn't mean that they're not the main event in a sense in this movement. I mean, yeah, there's a reason Candace has, you know, get earns a lot of money because people tune in. I mean, the most popular podcasts on the right are Candace, Tucker, and Megyn Kelly. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I
James,
think
go
I'd make
ahead.
a distinction between, compare it, and again, I'll use my three favorite words here, which are not always applicable, but so frequently applicable, compared to what? Yeah, obviously, the Ben Shapiro's, the Tim Pools, Mark Levin, they are comparatively intellectual heavyweights compared to other commentators on the political scene in America. They are by no means perfect. I am not someone who believes that the Bible is the source of American ideas, nor do I ground my ethics in Judeo Christian values. And so even people like Ben Shapiro or Dave Rubin or Tim Pool are wrong. They're wrong about the grounding of their ideas, and that sort of makes them helpless in one dimension when dealing with the irrational and the more consistently mystical. But discourse on the left and the right has dramatically declined in its intellectual quality, and I use the word intellectual in the broadest sense possible. You can't listen to Tucker or Candace, and I mean, it's destructive of your brain cells. It's not going to help you learn or grow. Obviously, the battle for but that being said, obviously, there's no perfect on the table here in the conservative movement, but on the face of it, the qualitative superiority of Shapiro and Dave Rubin and Tim Pool on this issue over Tucker and Candace and Bannon, et cetera, is obvious. It's not self-evident, and it is, as I say, a matter of degree. But you just listen to Shapiro for 5 minutes, listen to Tucker or Candace for 5 minutes, and you'll get the very clear idea. One person is in favor of truth, evidence, logic, individualism, comparatively speaking, and the other side are just mystic wackos who've dropped off the deep end of any. I mean, to take, when it comes to more, quote, moderate voices, I mean, you can hear this morning, I just happened to have the bad fortune this morning of having Fox News on, and they were Rachel Campos Duffy, very religious lady, who's the wife of the current transportation secretary, was kind of saying, well, no, people who say Israel's engaged in genocide, that's the kind of debate we ought to be able to have among. Oh, no. No, my dear, if that is something that you can debate in your mind, if you're running cover, even to just that extent, for these anti-Semitic mystics who are utterly irrational and utterly unprincipled, the Republican Party is, RIP. There's nothing left of it. The Shapiros and the Rubins had best win this debate, or we're in a world of hurt here in the States, I can tell you.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin, for becoming a member of the Ayn Rand Center UK YouTube channel. Thank you, Indra, for becoming a member of the channel. And thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Yeah. James, you mentioned it's disruptive to your brain cells to listen to some of these people. I think the way Ben Shapiro put it in his talk about something Candace said, that it's retarded and we're all more retarded for having heard it. And I think that's true of almost everything she said. We are gonna make all of us more retarded in a minute when we listen to some more clips. But I want before that to ask you, Mark. I've seen yesterday, I think it was an official Turning Point USA account saying next year at the conference we should have a debate between Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. Now, the people who think this is going to happen, I want you to answer this question slowly because they're not going to be able to compute it unless it's at the 0.75 speed. But you do jujitsu every day. You're a big mixed martial arts fan. Can you explain to me why? And to the people in the audience who want to see that debate, why is it that if you have a fighter who might be great, but he's 5'4" and 140 pounds, why they would not put him in the octagon with a Brock Lesnar type?
Well, I think people just like to see accidents, waiting to happen. They're satisfying that primitive part of their brain, that lizard brain that likes to see somebody get massacred. I guess I certainly I think, but I also think that that kind of scenario, even though the debate has to happen on some level, James, I'd like to get, and Alex, I'd like to get your points of view about this. It feels like a losing proposition for the good guy as opposed to the bad guy. You know what I mean? Even though they have to do this introspection and somehow this dialogue has to take place, should Ben honor Tucker Carlson with that platform? Should he actually give air to those perspectives, or any more air than they already have? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts of that. There is the part where, just in terms of on this channel we sometimes disagree amongst each other. I think we all agree on Tucker. We all despise him, but we're also against murder. And yeah, Ben Shapiro would murder him in a debate.
Well, no, I think it's self-defense. I think it's self-defense. So,
True,
I mean,
but there
that's
is a
James'
chance.
question. But
There is a chance that, it's not just metaphorically. There is a chance Tucker had time to think about his response to Ben Shapiro, and he told us how he laughed when he first heard it, and then he laughed, on stage just to demonstrate. I think he might, end up cackling his way to an early grave on stage if that happens. But yes, morally, the thing is, he's not an objectivist. He has a different starting point morally, but that starting point includes "thou shalt not murder," which is, by the way, the correct translation for people who read the Bible in English, where it says "thou shalt not kill." That's some hippie translated it. The actual original.
Oh, it's a Christian spin translation.
Yeah.
Remember, Jesus said, "Turn the other cheek." You don't kill, even in self-defense. The Christian, this really big sideline. The early English translations, obviously influenced by Protestantism in particular. So, just an aside.
That's an
Alex.
interesting point,
Yeah.
actually, though, James, because you're speaking about Protestantism and Christianity, and I even think that that's an interesting discussion to be had here, because here you have I think we're all pretty clear about our opinions about certain altruistic religions here. Okay. Definitely, James. I mean, from your background, I think that we can maybe, deduce that you're a bit of a skeptic. However, I've met many people who are what I would say, good Christian believers, shall we say. Okay, they have good intentions and they have a coherent ideology, a coherent thought that they're trying to kind of get across to you. Whereas, and they tend to bring what they would say is kind of, supporting evidence, okay, for their ideas from the Bible. They would be quoting scripture to you perhaps, and kind of bringing it from an evidentiary kind of perspective here. And whilst, I reject that, for myself, I do have to say that it is something that I can respect in a way, okay, because it's coming to the battle prepared to have the discussion and defend your ideas, okay. But Candace and Tucker are people who are standing behind this shield, right, of this kind of, Christianity, okay. Even, Candace, that's her whole thing with the cross in the back. And I sort of even think that's an interesting conversation for them to have with, somebody who's a true believer. Like, what is it that you are trying to achieve? Are your Christian principles guiding you at the moment? Is this a Christian pursuit that you have? And I actually think that would be a good idea, even just to expose them on this level, because I find that people will be quite turned off by that. And I even think that very recently I was listening to a podcast, and there was a nun speaking about how she was researching the former Archbishop of New York's history, and she discovered that actually he was Jewish. And she was kind of giving this story about the delight that he felt, the delight that they felt at finding this out, and how he would have been, it's a shame that he passed away because it was such a wonderful story. And it was, very heartwarming. And I said to myself, does Candace have like a church that she goes to where they're, how are they receiving her? How are they receiving what she is doing? I find that to be, it's actually unfathomable to me. And she must be causing so many problems for herself and her family with this kind of, behavior. I don't know what you guys think, because I know that we all have pretty strong feelings about this.
Well, real quick, are there better Christians? Yeah, there sure are. And in fact, when you break down what Candace and Tucker are now saying, they're not really talking to, the wider secular community. No, they're talking to their other Christian conservatives when they say, take demons seriously, like Tucker does, or when Candace says the Enlightenment is a myth. They are actually taking on other people on the right who are not post-liberal or not post-Enlightenment. The Enlightenment's a myth to Candace Owen. Science, I'm not going to join the cult of science. And Tucker Carlson is absolutely saying, well, it's very common to have these mystical experiences. Who are they talking to? Tucker will say, I grew up an Episcopalian, and they would never have believed that a demon could physically attack me. And they were all Republican Episcopalians, in a upscale neighborhood. But it was bad taste to talk about this supernatural, superstitious, miraculous. But I've now found the truth here. Now, let me say that even for the better Christians, Thomas Aquinas was a rational, in one sense, Christian. Mysticism is not what you believe, it's how you believe it. In the Middle Ages, the restoration of Aristotle came through into the Christian and Jewish worlds through people like Maimonides and Aquinas, who were busy trying to integrate Judaism and Christianity with Aristotle. The upshot of that was the Enlightenment. Reformed Judaism in the 18th century came about under Moses Mendelssohn. By the 18th century, Christians had abandoned burning people at the stake and torture, and were beginning to learn religious tolerance. It is the fact that the West in Europe went through an enlightenment that made them better. Now that is under assault, explicit assault from people like Tucker and Candace. Now, if you're just a sort of a halfway compartmentalized church on Sunday Christian conservative, that's the danger. You really don't have an answer, and you're going to be forced to make is your true loyalty to reason, or is your loyalty to mysticism? And Tucker and Candace are asking the pointed question to other Christian conservatives. Well, if your Christianity is, you should jump off the deep end of mysticism like we are. But they are the voice of the pre-Enlightenment, irrational religious world. Thank goodness that European Christians and Jews went through an enlightenment, but it is that they are the enemies of. So in this sense, Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin are the comparative pro-reason, pro-individual people trying to hold out for, I mean, if you're a traditionalist, America's tradition is radical secularization, true liberalism. And to the extent that they acknowledge that, they are on the good side. But let me just caution that any concession to the mystics means you're really disarmed in the face of it. It's the same with Christian altruism versus socialism. The Christian conservatives are completely disarmed by their own morality of altruism, so they don't have a clear and consistent response to socialism. In the Israel thing, it's exactly the same. So their tribalism, their anti-Semitic tribalism kicks in real hard because they've totally abandoned Enlightenment ideas of reason and individualism. And they are demanding that other religious conservatives join them in this crusade of virulent neo-mysticism.
Yeah, I have to say, James, after hearing that, I'm even more pessimistic because Tucker and Candace are obviously more consistent in their application of their ideas. Ben Shapiro, what he said was more in line with our views on this channel than with his religion. And yeah, unfortunately, the more consistent are likely to win. Thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. Apollo Zeus says, "Smart look there, Razi. Thank you. I can't talk about Steve Bannon dressed as a civilian, so I dressed up. Thank you, Amir, for the super chat. Amir says, love you guys. Keep doing Galt's work. Thanks, and thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Okay, the first clip we have, we're going to ease ourselves into this. And the first clip Daniel has is of Ben Shapiro. I don't know what it is. He's going to surprise us. So, Daniel, go ahead.
That means that if we offer a guest for your viewing, we owe it to you to ask the kinds of questions that actually get at the truth. If we agree with the guest, that's fine, but we should own it. So, for example, if you host a Hitler apologist, Nazi-loving, anti-American piece of refuse like Nick Fuentes, you know, the Nick Fuentes who said that the Vice President of the United States is a, quote, fat gay race traitor married to a Jeet. The person who said that Charlie Kirk was a, quote, retarded idiot. The person who said, and pardon my language here, it's his quote, that he, quote, took Turning Point USA and f***ed it, and that's why it's filled with groypers. If you have that person on your show and you proceed to glaze him, you ought to own it.
Let's pause here. So, yeah, Mark, this was Ben Shapiro. He's like, this is wrong, and here's a list of reasons why this is wrong. And again, what I see on Twitter is people saying, look, my response to somebody responded to him, LOL, and got more likes than Ben Shapiro because, Russian bots. But also, yeah, these people probably spend more time on Twitter than rational people. That's their argument. I said LOL and I got more likes than you. Ergo, I'm right, you're wrong.
I mean, that's even Dave Smith does that, right? And all of his followers, his stupid fangirls on X, if you get ratioed, they think that's a moral victory, and it's not. And it's just secondhanders looking at life from the second-handed point of view. They think that something's popular makes it true. And of course, that's not the case. I mean, Ben is stepping outside the moral direction of the Republican Party right now. And I would urge Ben Shapiro to take a look at the American Capitalist Party. We have secular roots, Ben, but we accept you and your religion because we also understand that the Constitution protects you from government intrusion on your religious beliefs. You have freedom of conscience with us, Ben. Maybe not with your Christian nationalists, but you do with us. So I would urge him to go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, donate, become a part of the change right now, because the GOP, no longer conserves classical liberalism, and it is in conflict with his essential principles. So he's going to have a very, very difficult time defeating the wave right now. And I might add that I predicted in 2016 in an interview of conservatives in Hollywood, for New Yorker magazine, I quickly stated I wasn't a conservative and didn't support Trump, but I predicted that Trump would destroy the Republican Party, and it looks like I'm right.
Thank you, Anne, for the super chat. Anne asks, are you saying Ben should abandon the right to Nick? If you're asking me, no, I was saying Ben should abandon religion for objectivism. That would be
Yeah, but
my.
the right doesn't conserve classical liberalism anymore. So yes, he should abandon the right. They're they're false poles, right? They're really collectivist. They just the people they're shilling for, the group they're shilling for, just happens to be, there's a pretense of opposition there, but they're not really opposed to government pushing aside the Constitution and restraining you, the individual, for whatever goals, social goals that they want to reach. So, yes, he should leave the right, and he should go to the place called AmericanCapitalistParty.org. That's where real liberalism lives. And if he wants to live in a benevolent society that accepts him and his freedom of conscience and accepts him as a Jew and will accept Christians as Christians, provided they're peaceful, then he should start shilling for us, the American
and
Capitalist Party.
and remember, like, he's not actually abandoning anything. He is staying where he was. He's advocating for the same things he was advocating for before. It's the Tuckers and Candaces who post October 7th became, I mean, they were bad. Both of them were bad before, and you can look them up on our channel to see if we've ever said anything otherwise. But this has become their issue. Basically, the Jews have become their issue post October 7th. And yeah, so they have changed their tune a little bit. Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to I do want to defend Ben a little bit here. I don't know if he really mentioned Judaism at all in his speech here. So I think, maybe we're being a bit assumptive as to, what philosophy has brought him to the situation where he is standing on that stage giving that speech. I think we need to be rather careful, I think, sometimes when we're kind of assuming somebody's.
Alex, he did mention the
He did.
Judeo-Christian God, and
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
and
I
that
stand
is the
corrected
foundation,
then.
as we all know, of all civilized thought is the Bible.
Mhm.
So,
Well, okay. I mean, I suppose if from a epistemological kind of perspective, right? It's sort of like
compared to what, like I say,
well, no, I don't mean that. I mean that it's I suppose if it's a little bit like we go back and we think about Roman law. Okay, it's like the very original Roman law as it pertains to slaves. You're a lawyer, obviously, James, so I'm picking something that you know a lot about that I know very little about. But that it's kind of it's an evolution of thoughts is sort of my point here. But
yeah, and there are good people who believe. Don't get me wrong. You can say same things in political ways that might even make ad hoc alliances with religious people. And as I say, one can believe in God even. I guess it's harder and harder, for serious minds in the 21st century. But it's even possible to be a non-mystic theist. So yeah, I mean, I would cut enormous slack in certain ways. It is where they connect the dots and where the weakness, where the fracture lines are already. So if he can't have a good response to Tucker saying, I was attacked by demons, he ought to look into it. Because all Tucker is really saying there is, see how seriously I take this thing that all of us conservatives believe about the relationship between religion and morality, for example, or politics.
But I feel like even I would quite like for you, James, to have a conversation with either, these, I mean, I don't know, it never happened, but, somebody like you would have a conversation with Candace and Tucker and really interrogate their Christian credentials, because there's something very phony about what it is that they're engaging in here. That it's not this what I would consider to be an authentic philosophy that they have. That, I studied a lot of, John, or I studied the, King James Bible. I'm obsessed with it. I'm always reading it. And here I have come to my, here, this is me with my ideas that I wish to present to you, right? There is something that is just so inauthentic. You can see that it's so superficial. They know very little. It's almost kind of like, Tucker has supposedly been this, like, devout Christian his whole life, yet he talks like somebody who is very new to the faith.
Oh,
Kind of like a born again kind of
by
person.
his own self-description. Yeah, I was raised
Yes,
by these wishy-washy Episcopalian conservatives.
right.
Now I've had mystical experiences, and I take it seriously now. But
Mhm.
Tucker did, but Shapiro himself started out with Hillel and Jesus,
Mhm.
something that Jewish and Christian thought believes. The golden rule.
Mhm.
Do unto others. You treat your neighbor as you'd want to be treated yourself. So he's quoting Hillel and Jesus as the
Right.
foundation. Now, it's
Mhm.
true, there's something more authentically biblical, I would say, about
Yes.
Shapiro. These guys, Tucker and Carlson, Tucker Carlson, UFOs are supernatural phenomenon. They're, angelic and demonic spirits coming to the earth. I'm not making it up. That's the kind of crap Tucker says these days.
Yeah, I know. I
That
know.
should disqualify anyone. I mean, when Shapiro says you own it, so he's saying own it so that sane minds can identify you for what you are, and that's a really, really great point. And
Mm.
Shapiro, I'll defend Shapiro. Shapiro was implicitly depending upon reason and individualism, and a true more. Let me put it this way: a more true Americanism than either
Mhm.
Tucker or Candace were. You'll notice how they become just rank anti-Semite collectivists. They're now calling the Enlightenment a myth, like Candace does. And Tucker going to Qatar. Hey, they don't have gay pride parades in Qatar. That's better than New York City. Okay, if you're that far gone in your mysticism, say it out loud, own it, so that we can shun you properly, so we can ignore you, consider you the idiot you are. Would I be on a
Yeah.
stage debating with? No. What Candace Owens says, I would not sanction by being on the same stage with her. Could there be a potential value to it, so that I could point out how this woman doesn't even know her own religion? Sure, I could
Mhm.
show her up for being an idiot on all manner of things: history, religion, what America was founded, what the founding of America, all manner of things. I'm sure I could humiliate her on, because this lady is, she's either psychotic or she's just a grifter, or a combination of the two. Uh,
Yeah.
and it should be at this point
And
not too difficult an inference for
And it,
people.
it doesn't matter. I mean, she embarrasses herself all the time. It would not matter to her audience. The reason the first question Ben Shapiro got was about the USS Liberty, and then the guy who asked the question did his own video. We're gonna revisit that. We did a show about it months ago. We're gonna revisit that topic because that's the one of all the conspiracy theories that Candace throws out there. This is the one that kind of took because this happened, and you're basically just putting motives in people's minds, and of course adding a bunch of stuff, and she has that. We're going to do a show specifically about the guy that she had on, the anti-Semite who wrote books, two books, both of which about were the USS Liberty incident. In both of them, he called it the USS Liberty Holocaust. So it tells you a lot about who he is. But just
I think, listen, I'm starting to feel a little bit differently now. I'm starting to feel that maybe the whole Tucker and the demon thing, maybe it's a very good sort of, maybe there's evidence there for maybe Christianity and this whole kind of, demon thing. Maybe he's onto something, because, he's maybe that really is what's happened here. And what we're seeing here is we need to have an exorcism to try and, really get to the bottom of Tucker's problem.
uh, I'll leave
I
that.
nominate James as tribute, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, I'm a conservative, but not the type that these people are. I'm going to read your next super chats and then respond. And thanks, PC, for another super chat. He says, Carlson is a liberal. No. And then the next super chat. Thank you again, PC. Razi, are you conservative? I guess you're not a lib. I am a lib. We can't let these people redefine words and then accept it as such. Look, if you let conservatives and the left in the U.S. tell us that liberals are actually, it's another word for socialist, you're giving up in the same way that, if people call Israel's defensive war against the Palestinians genocide, don't let people, just because a word has become in popular usage the opposite of what it actually is, that doesn't mean you should accept it. So yes, I absolutely am not a conservative. I am a liberal in the real sense. Okay, let's
And
go.
this is gaining traction. What you said earlier is the disturbing part. Yes, the Ben Shapiros and the Mark Levins represent something older in the Republican Party, but what's growing and taking on greater and greater substance is this wacko Christian nationalism part. I heard something very, very disturbing. At the Turning Point conference this weekend, a Fox News commentator, Jesse Waters, said, I was a church on Sundays Christian, or worse than that, I would only go on Christmas and Easter. But now because of Charlie Kirk, I've now joined a Bible study group. I didn't like Jesse Waters' views on it. He was a shill for Trump anyway. But now he's turning into a religious shill for Trump, thanks to the influence of Charlie Kirk. And so Greg Gutfeld, of all things, is now in a Bible study group with Jesse Waters, Harold, forget his name, the Democrat who's sometimes on Fox News, and Greg Gutfeld are now studying Bible thanks to the evangelical work of Charlie Kirk. The right is getting worse and worse and worse, and we're watching it unfold before our eyes.
I'm gonna read a super chat, but Daniel, we can leave the rest of the Ben Shapiro clip for later. Let's go to Megan Kelly after I read this. So thank you, Skinny Money, for the super chat. Skinny Money says, on Alex's commentary about their fake Christianity, I think Tucker et al. Use Christianity to sanitize otherwise reprehensible ideas. Bonnie asks, wasn't there a TDO or TDS about the Liberty guy a while back? First of all, it's TRS. To TDS is something else, but yes, there was, but it was about the show where Candace interviewed him. We're gonna do a show about this guy. He did a debate, and the one time he did a debate, it really showed that. And the thing is, the people who repeat his stuff repeat it because they saw it when he was interviewed by Candace with basically the softest interview possible. And as soon as he is questioned on things, you see his own story. He doesn't remember the own story that he made up, and he makes up different stuff as we go. So yeah, we're gonna do more of that. How much is it gonna help? I don't know. I mean, that video that we did by our standards did pretty well, but most of the comments are not actually clearly people haven't watched, listened, and paid attention. Anyway, we're doing our part. Let's hear from Megan Kelly.
You mentioned him, and your name came up on this stage last night in regards to pretty much all of this. Would you like the opportunity to respond?
Well, I found it kind of funny that Ben thinks he has the power to decide who gets excommunicated from the conservative movement, which shows a willful blindness about his position in it. It reminded me a little of when the girl who was the head of our middle school chorus told me she was going to take all my friends away from me. Chorus? A head cheerleader maybe, but like...
Okay, let's pause here. I mean, seriously, you had a day to come up with some answer, and your answer to his actual points, his criticism about your decision to defend Nazis and the people who platform them is, I'm more popular than you. That is pathetic, but that is the intellectual level that you can.
But it's an outright lie. Ben Shapiro did not say, I am the authority on who gets to be
it is also a lie.
One way or another. He said it ought to be called out and truth comes first. And
Yeah.
all he said is, yeah, of course, he wasn't questioning her freedom of speech. Megyn Kelly is on this rant that if you criticize her at all, or if you ask her to criticize a vile anti-Semite, you're somehow forcing her to do anything.
Yeah.
No, you can have whatever irrational beliefs you want, but own it, is what Shapiro said. So just to do that, she's mischaracterizing it. But then your point kicks in all the stronger. All she's saying is, look, it's a matter of numbers. So long as I have bigger numbers than he does, and we all know the logical fallacy that is, right? So
Yeah, and I don't know if we're gonna get to it later, but there's the point where she actually defends the questions that Candace, some specific questions that Candace has been asking. But yeah, Mark, your thoughts on the clip we just saw.
Yeah, I mean, she just relied on the classical thing that people who don't want to introspect rely on. They hurl an insult at somebody and say, you're a C-list guy. Why should I worry about you? That's just, that ad hominem is just, it keeps her from refreshing her own perspective, right? And changing. And she's acquiring an audience from this kind of insanity. And so I fear that these folks are just going to continue to do what they do. Look, the right is going towards its moral consistency, just like the left is going for their moral consistency right now. So that's why the left is going towards democratic socialism, and the right is going towards some kind of theocratic nationalism. That's their collective. That's the collective they seek, and that's what enables them to be morally consistent. And like James said, that's what makes me fear for Ben saying the right thing at the right place to the right people. But at the in the end of the day, he's not going to be morally consistent, and that's the crack in his argument. I mean, even conservatives like Dennis Prager are anti-enlightenment, and these are intellectuals on the right who consistently apply their religious principles to their political principles. Eventually, those principles end up being the whole thing. They end up being the whole thing. So they can't compartmentalize. And so, look, Ben is not long for the conservative movement anymore. It's not conserving classical liberalism. He needs to come to the American Capitalist Party. Come on, Ben.
Thank you, Ozzy, for the super chat. Ozzy says, in Tucker's moral worldview, are Tyler Robinson's parents bad for having turned in their son? Absolutely. And that's a fantastic question. Yes, that is the view that Tucker expressed. I don't know if we're going to watch that clip again. It's a short one, but a disturbing one. But yes, Tucker said,
highly disturbing.
yeah, he said, if my brother went on a murder spree, I would not denounce him because he's my brother. So murder is not right or wrong. It's depends on the blood relation. Alex.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I don't really know what to say about that, to be honest. I mean, they didn't turn in their son. Like they, as far as I understood, they called a family friend who was to get advice, like somebody who was in law enforcement, to get advice about how to kind of handle the situation, because they obviously don't want to be implicated in this in obstruction of justice. And that must have been I think it's fair to recognize that that is a tremendously difficult thing to do to your own child. And I can, I cannot imagine doing that kind of thing. I think it's okay to recognize that that is, something that would be harmful to you personally. Okay, it would hurt for the whole situation. But Tucker, I wouldn't turn on my brother because of this, because of that. You turned on your father because he worked for Voice of America and was in the CIA. You turned on your father when he passed away. So I don't know what you're talking about here. You turned him in every way. Every podcast you do, you're denouncing him, for his evil work with the evil regimes. But
because they want to keep friends with these monstrous anti-Semites, and how dare you?
His father was not an anti-Semite. He came and he spoke in the Knesset,
Right,
Carlson
but
was
you
not an
see,
anti-Semite.
don't blame me for having Fuentes on or ascribe Fuentes' view, even though I gave a dripping, softball pro pro Nick Fuentes interview, like Tucker Carlson did. No, I'm not saying that you're guilty by, no, obviously. I do what I do, you do what you do, but I can judge people based on the nature of their association, certain kinds of associations. That is to say, if you refuse to call out an anti-Semite as an anti-Semite and still say they're my friend or my political ally, yeah, that's on you. You are sanctioning anti-Semitism. And to avoid that moral conclusion, Tucker will go so far as to say, I wouldn't turn my own brother in for murder. Then you are evil. Then you are evil, Tucker. Then your friendships, your group, your unity is doing, you're doing what Shapiro said. Don't place unity over the truth.
And by the
That's
way,
exactly what Shapiro said. And Tucker is going so far on the unity over truth aspect that he'll say, I would cover up for my serial killer brother. Wow.
Veled says in the chat, shocking comment from Tucker. Shocking in the same sense that the Candace clip, which we're probably going to spare you today, but we showed it yesterday, where she at the end where she goes Jews, or she says it's the Jewish people, not Talmudic Jewish, not none of the qualifiers she usually has. The Jewish people are responsible for slavery. It's only shocking in the sense that it came out. It's not shocking in the sense that, you would expect better from these people. And that's the beauty of what Ben Shapiro did. He did something, very, very Ben Shapiro-like, but on stage in front of these people, and now they're scrambling for responses, and their responses are almost as telling as the policies that brought them to where
Candace holds up a book of Talmud, presumably, or a book on the Talmud, and says, anyone who studies the Talmud, read it. These people are all evil. The classic joke, though, talk about post-Enlightenment, post-Reform Judaism, the classic joke, you put 3 rabbis into a single room, you get 5 opinions. But she's ascribing a literal interpretation to every aspect of the Talmud. If I would have the opportunity Alex suggests for me, I would wave the Christian Bible right at Candace and say, this justifies, submitting to the evildoer. This justifies slavery. This justifies, and I would go on and on and on and on and on. And read your book, Candace, as I wag it in her face, and then she'd go, whoa, that's not my Bible because I interpret that this way and that way and this other way. But no student of Talmud is a decent human being as far as she's concerned. But you're right, still worse, she just says the Jews now, and she's dropped any qualification. So this entity has revealed her bigotry, her collectivist, her mysticism entrenched bigotry right up front now. The mask has been exposed. And for that service alone, Ben Shapiro, I will buy you a dinner, Ben Shapiro, just for forcing Candace to drop the mask and say, the Jews, anyone who studies Talmud, full stop. Okay, no, Jews were the responsible for slavery. No, Miss Owen, it was Muslims mostly selling to Christians mostly that was behind the African slave trade.
By the way, it would have to be a kosher dinner, which is not very good, but maybe it's, he did some good, so it's worth it. Thank you, Jeff, for being a member of the YouTube channel for 43 months. Jeff asks, why does the membership gifting not allow you to choose someone who deserves it? I don't do it anymore because it may go to some idiot. Unfortunately, we can't help you with that. We do have some super dedicated trolls who are here every day. They are a minority, I think, of our viewers, but they might become members, and then James is going to have to deal with them on Sundays in the sessions on OPAR. So yeah, thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. That definitely goes to people who we think are not idiots. Let's listen to Megan Kelly. I don't know how to categorize her, but let's hear some more from her. And then, yes, we will get to Steve Bannon. I think he is maybe the most significant of these people in terms of his talk.
Resent the whole thing. I object to the whole thing. Ben and I, he had the nerve to call me a friend right before he called me a despicable coward for not calling out the people he once called out. So he both wants to parent me and be my child. He wants to tell me what I have to do and who I have to say what to. And then when I don't, he and some of his friends want to act like utter victims because I won't do what they say. They need me. I have to be their daddy and step in to protect them. and I am not their daddy. And I resent that he thinks he's in a position to decide who must say what to whom and when. Thank you. So I don't think we are friends anymore. I've been a very good friend to Ben. Nobody knew who the heck Ben Shapiro was when I started putting him on my shows on the Fox News channel, and I helped make him a star. And I've been very, very good to Ben over the years, and he's been good to me too. He just recently came on my tour, as did you.
Okay, I don't need to hear
And I
this
gave him-
again. Sorry, it's not very interesting. But Mark, did you hear anything other than psychoanalyzing of Ben Shapiro there? Did you hear anything of substance? He wants me to be his parent and his child. It's again, Ben Shapiro went through a list of things which he thinks people were wrong about. If somebody goes through a list of things that they think you did wrong, and you think you are right, are you going to call them names in response?
No, no, I'm going to address the list and go through it point by point and try to refute what the person said. Since she can't, she's calling him names. So that's the short answer.
So I think we're not going to get to the point, at least not soon, the point where she said, there's a point where she talks about Candace and Candace's accusations. And, she said, well, I didn't like that she asked the questions about Erica Kirk's involvement. Was Erica Kirk involved in the murder of her husband? But I supported her asking questions about whether Israel was involved. And I thought that was pretty revealing because the just asking questions thing really falls apart when you acknowledge that you choose the questions, and by asking specific questions, you are making a specific point and alluding to a specific answer. Mark.
Yeah, the double standard always shows the anti-Semite for who they are, right? They always apply a different standard when it comes to the Jews and Israel than they do to everybody else. So yeah, she's been exposed. She's been exposed. Now let's see what happens from here.
Yeah. Alex,
Morally judging someone does not mean you're denying their right to freedom of speech or demanding that they take an opinion at all. She's really giving the cheesiest kind of answer. Okay, she's
Yeah.
hiding behind subjectivism thoroughly. No, look, the people you're defending are enemies of science and sanity, and they say the most horrific, hateful things, anti-Semitic things. Okay, and you call them friends? Okay, I'm going to judge you, Megyn Kelly. Okay, but I'm going to judge you. My judgment doesn't mean you don't have a right to free speech. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you what I think. You're wrong. I want nothing to do with you. Now, moral judgment means I get to do that too, Megyn Kelly, and I'm going to morally judge you. And if you think my moral judgment is telling you who your friends ought to be, then you have a messed up idea of rights. I want nothing to do with you or your creeped out friends, okay? I have a right to the opinion, but you're deceiving your listeners if you're not giving a full-throated description of what your enemies are saying. And guess what? I'm going to take that into account when I judge you, Megyn Kelly. So if you, so I'll just post a few Candace quotes. I'll post a few Tucker quotes, and then I'll show you how Megyn Kelly doesn't respond to all that, and then says, "How dare you, if you criticize me for having these people as my friends and not attacking?" Yeah, when you don't attack Adolf Hitler and you talk about Adolf Hitler, I can judge you.
Yeah, somebody in the chat says, you clearly are trying to silence Kelly's speech by using your speech to tell her to shut up. First of all, who told her to shut up? She said certain things, and then Ben Shapiro and us here on this channel listen, hear her out and say, here is what's wrong with that.
She's
Now,
free
she
to
can respond, she can ignore it, she can do whatever, but
exactly. She can be just as idiotic as she wants to be. She's got a freedom to be an idiot. She's a freedom to speak. I'm not telling her what to say. I'm telling her she's wrong.
Yeah.
Get it?
Alex, I acknowledge, I have to tell you, I acknowledge something that I said that was wrong. I said it on Twitter, and I said it a couple of days ago when James and I did a show about Megyn Kelly, a show that was scheduled for a week ago, which we kept postponing because of the massacre in Australia. And we ended up doing it a day after Ben Shapiro's talk. And I started it with saying that she used to be one of the best journalists in America. I take that back, and I will elaborate on why I'm taking it back on a show that we're going to do about her again, probably Tuesday, James and myself. But yeah, what do you think? I mean, I don't know how much of Megyn Kelly's past, how much of her journey you've been following. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I have to say, like, people are talking, like, oh, don't speak about Megyn Kelly, you're trying to silence her. Like, she's some kind of, wee woman at the PTA meeting. You know what I'm saying? This is serious journalist, supposedly, a former prosecutor, someone who is a serious mover and shaker. Okay, she needs to. I was really quite disappointed in that response. I mean, she really needs to put on her big girl pants, I think. And like, this idea that you are so hurt, you're so wounded by this, and you're all up in your feels. Okay, I didn't actually hear any kind of any sort of rebuttal to the points, like, no, Ben Shapiro was wrong because of what? It's no, he hurt me, he's all up in my feels. And this is the second time I've heard Megyn say that she doesn't want to be a daddy or a mummy to anybody. Well, actually, nobody asked you to be that, and you're really degrading yourself by suggesting any of this. Okay, no one's asking you to be that. We're asking you to be the serious journalist that you supposedly are. And I think about it, if I was to kind of superimpose this onto my life, okay, I work in the kind of area of cyber, right? And if I was at a conference and everybody around me was saying, you know what, instead of our kind of strategic concept going to be that, Russia is a huge cybercrime evil, I think we should all start working with Russia. And I think that we should actually start spying on the United States. Okay. And if I was to say, you know what, I vehemently disagree with all of you. I think all of you are massively misjudging the situation. Okay, and it's exactly the same. If they were to turn around and go, Alex hurt me, she just hurt me. It's like, no, you're saying something serious. You're making serious claims. You're making, that deserve to be responded to. And I think about it, if it really was superimposed onto my life, which is, this is important stuff, okay, that you're talking about ideas. So, if I was to say to people at a cyber conference, I don't think we should work with Russia, and I think that you're all crazy, then the idea that it would all be, oh, but you're all up in my feelings, and she's trying to stop me from speaking, is just trying to stop me. It's pathetic. Nobody's trying to stop you. You're on a stage in front of, tens of thousands of people, and this is going to be broadcast to millions of people. The idea that your speech is being stifled in some capacity, you are a lightweight. Really very disappointing, actually, as well, from a woman, to be honest.
Somebody in the chat says, you all need to find God. I mean, he's the Almighty. He needs to find us. Isn't that going to be easier?
Tell the truth, shame the devil, Razzie. Tell the truth, shame the devil.
Well, I'm waiting for him to find me. Until then, I am gonna stick with reality. Okay, Daniel, do we have? Yeah, okay. I just wanna just to give myself an excuse for why I thought Megyn Kelly may have been better than she is. Here's a video of her from when she was not as bad.
And Fred Line, president of the United Auto Workers Local 602, and Jonathan Honig, CEO of Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
All right, so Jonathan, let me start with you. As I understand it now, the feds have already approved $25 billion, and now they want another $50 billion to go to the United Auto Workers, among other, or to go to these auto industries, in part to pay for members' retirement and health care benefits?
Indeed. I mean, and it is thievery, Megan. There's no other way to describe
All right,
it. It's
I think
thievery.
we've seen enough. I just wanted to point out that our very own Jonathan Honig was also taken in by Megyn Kelly's apparent journalistic abilities back when she was at Fox. Yeah, she used to keep much better company. Now, there's another point she made, actually. I'll come back to it later, but yeah, she's really gone downhill. Thank you, Bronx Guy Gun Hill Road, for the super chat. Steve Bannon. Daniel, that was for you, so that we hear.
Yeah, but you dropped it. I'm not ready. Okay, now,
Oh,
Bannon.
sorry.
Shapiro is like a cancer, and that cancer spreads. It's a cancer, and it metastasizes. He tried to take over Breitbart, and I ran him out of there. He tried to take over David Horowitz's, who was his mentor. Don't ask me. Ask the guys associated with David Horowitz what he did there. He tried to take that over. And mark my word, he will make a move on Turning Point because he's always been envious of Charlie Kirk.
Okay, yeah, that's not the worst of what he said. There's worse than that, but
Well,
I
Megyn
do want to
Kelly
say,
said that Shapiro was telling me to shut up and that I had no right to talk. No, this is what it looks like when someone tells you, shut up, you have no right to talk. It's a
yeah,
cancer that needs to be cut out. So Shapiro said nothing like that. It is Bannon and that side that is saying, shut up or else. We have to extract you by surgery like a tumor. Okay, that's the shut up or else crowd. Okay,
Yep.
and that, by the way, is consistent. One last thing, and I will shut up. Is perfectly consistent with their president's idea through the FCC that somehow they should be able to revoke licenses because broadcasters are being unfair to their boss, Donald Trump. They're the ones now growingly in favor of censorship. And here you got Bannon saying Shapiro's the cancer. He's the thing that needs to be cut out. Now that comes a whole lot closer, Miss Kelly, to saying someone doesn't have a right to speak or it should be excommunicated than anything Shapiro said.
yeah. Somebody in the chat said, and then deleted the comment, but said Bannon is gross. Absolutely, but if there's one talk of the ones I've seen, other than Ben Shapiro, that I would recommend that people watch, as gross as he is Bannon. Bannon is very much the kind of evil mind behind some of these ideas, and it's knowing that Bannon is a part of it. It's really no surprise that it went from where it started in 2015 to again, to having a massive chunk of the Republican Party be actual Nazis and Nazi apologists. Mark, it was weird for me to hear him say Ben Shapiro tried to take over Breitbart. Do you remember Andrew Breitbart? What Steve Bannon made of Breitbart is absolutely the opposite of what Andrew Breitbart made of Breitbart before he passed away.
Yeah, that's true. But what concerns me even more than Bannon destroying Breitbart is the incendiary language he uses here to describe Ben Shapiro. Now, I don't this comes about as close to incitement as I can imagine, James. I know it probably isn't because it doesn't lead to immediate violence, but he's certainly saying a guy like him needs to be cut out. And at the very minimum, that means politically marginalized and shut up. At the very maximum, it might mean exactly what happened to Charlie Kirk. And, there may be somebody in that audience who takes his words like that and, attempts to purify the party by cutting out the cancer that's metastasizing within it, which is actually, a brain. It's being mistaken for a cancer. So, yeah, I mean, his rhetoric is really scary to me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, his rhetoric, his ability to deliver that to an audience that really is, intellectually a soundbite influenced audience. There's a reason all these talks there are kind of long tweet length because they know their audience. Alex.
Yeah, I mean, Breitbart had, or maybe still has, a branch in Jerusalem, Breitbart Jerusalem, that was launched by Bannon. So it's quite incredible. And actually, just to have a quote here from Andrew Breitbart himself, who was, by the way, he was not a conservative Jewish mysticist at all. I mean, Andrew Breitbart was an atheist through and through. He did not use Judaism in his defense of his ideas in any way. However, he says Israel is in the right. If Israel goes, so will America. I mean, you do not get more, I think, clear than Andrew Breitbart was on this specific issue. and as well on, David Horowitz. These are, two men who are no longer with us, who, to twist, I think, their uh, their philosophy to such a huge degree is really quite ambitious, I have to say, of Steve Bannon. I mean, he's really kind of banking on the idea that on the fact that no one maybe is really going to remember this. I mean, it's just really incredible. But Steve Bannon, he's lost it a little bit. If ever, one of the best. I think it's really important to listen to speeches and to listen to the way that people deliver their ideas. If you listen to Steve Bannon's speech that he gave in the Oxford Union, and you compare that speech to this, it's night and day. I mean, he really, you can say, I really think all of his ideas about economic nationalism and all the rest of it's a load of bollocks. However, he is a very clear communicator. He can very effectively, I think, he used to be able to very effectively lead the audience. I think he was a great reader of people, a great political kind of interpreter, if you will. But now I just say this is just gobbledygook, to be honest. He's just lost it. I even was listening to a clip of him recently. It was really incoherent. I said, he's completely lost it. I mean, love Steve Bannon or hate Steve Bannon. I mean, he was a very politically, I think this man is actually gifted, to be honest. If you think about the kind of the Trump campaign, just studying it from a scientific perspective, what Steve Bannon managed to accomplish there is nothing short of a coup. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was pathetic. It was emotional. And it was everything, I think, that the calm sort of orator Steve Bannon from 2016 really was not.
Well, I think the orator is still there, and that's the thing. He knows how to deliver a powerful message. I mean, I don't want to go into this because people will say you're just comparing him, but there is a similarity in style, I think, between his speeches and Hitler in the kind of rebel rousing, uh, kind of rising excitement type of speech. But yeah, it's the style similarities that bother me much less than the content similarities.
Well,
Yeah.
I even think he's channeling a lot of Scots Irish in him as well. I mean, I think that, if you think about kind of American history and the Ulster Scots that came over to the United States of America, and their philosophy about government and their philosophy kind of about the kind of the terminal battle against the state. And that is really, if you want to think about it, J.D. Vance's philosophy. If you read kind of hillbilly elegies, it's very much, I feel like he's very much channeling sort of like a whiskey rebellion, but instead of him channeling that kind of inner, what the Scots Irish had was actually kind of rugged individualism in a way. So he's not like that. But he is sort of trying to channel this populist raging against the machine, but he actually sounds like a crackpot, in my opinion, who's screaming into the void. I don't think this is landing, Razzie. I really don't. That's my interpretation.
God,
I hope you're right, James.
Alex.
James, I wanna read you a comment here because it's from one of our most dedicated trolls in the chat, who says Charlie Kirk had Israel's number. He was backing away and saw the monsters. The curtain was pulled back on the wizard. This really shows you why these people are effective. Charlie Kirk was speaking every single day, recorded, live streamed. The whole world could see it, and he was 100% pro-Israel. As soon as he gets assassinated, Candace Owens starts pushing this line that somehow behind the scenes, secretly unbeknownst to anybody, including his wife, but somehow Candace knows this, he really started despising Israel, maybe because of the fact that Jews are responsible for slavery. I don't know, but for some reason, yeah, James.
Yeah, his public statements, his official position was pro-Israel. Now, they're the one. It's funny. Listen to where the Bannon is putting it. Shapiro is attempting a coup to take over Turning Point. No, it is people like Candace who are trying to say, well, look at these private emails before he died. Look at this private exchange. People even reporting private conversations that can't even be verified about what he said. But was he trying to maintain unity? I have no doubt. But was he, maybe soft pedaling it in conversations with some people over others in private? Perhaps. I only have their word and I don't believe their word, so it's still an arbitrary, even that much is an arbitrary assertion as far as I'm concerned. But Candace, all of his public statements and the official position of Turning Point USA was still very much pro-Israel. And this battle over Charlie Kirk and his death tells you something about the mystic nature of these people, and their tug of war over his legacy is very interesting. But you're absolutely right. They're the ones trying to engage in a coup, in effect, and put their anti-Semitic, anti-Israel slant on it and take over Turning Point USA and turn it into a faithful reflection of Tucker and Candace's anti-Semitic, anti-Israel position. No, they're the ones engaged in a coup, Mr. Bannon. And I can hear you when you say that. Now, most of the time when people judge others, they're projecting. But in this case, I think, what Alex said is true. This guy's no dummy. This guy is on the ball enough to know exactly what he's doing. Megyn Kelly is on the ball enough to know what she's doing. No one told you you have to shut up. No one is excommunicating you from anything, Megyn. We're saying that we're judging you if you don't call this out. Similarly here, Bannon is saying the Shapiros want to trust me. Shapiro's going to try and take over your organization, people. No, well, wait a minute here. As far as I could tell, in all of his public assertions, Charlie Kirk was clear and consistently for Israel. As much as the right is for Israel. Let me put it that way. I mean, there's some criticism there. But they're the ones engaged in this coup, trying to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlsonize Turning Point USA. Clearly.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, this troll continues. We're not going to read everything, but he says something like, why did Charlie Kirk refuse hundreds of millions of dollars in bribes? This is a thing that these people do. They throw out an assertion and then they go, why did insert something that never happened but Candace claims happened, and yeah, then what? Okay, Mark, we only have a few more minutes with you, so I want to play a bit more of Bannon and then go to you.
Let's face it, Ben Shapiro is the farthest thing from MAGA. Let's be blunt. He is a hardcore never Trumper. He's a hardcore never Trumper. In the spring of 16, he tried to upend Breitbart. He walked off the job, made a big deal about some incident in Mar-a-Lago with Corey Lewandowski. He tried to turn it to Ted Cruz from Donald Trump because he hated Donald Trump. In the general election, he barely supported Donald Trump.
All right, you know what? Okay, this isn't the clip I wanted. He talked about Israel. But I want to point something out, and then I will tell you some of what he said about Israel. First of all, the thing with Corey Lewandowski was he pushed a journalist from Breitbart aside, and then Bannon defended him and accused her of making a big fuss out of it. So that was the minor thing there. And Daniel, you say it's coming. How much more will we have to go through until we get to him talking about Israel? In seconds.
Not much. Half a minute.
All right. Let's do it so that Mark can respond to Bannon's word and not me, I guess, distorting Bannon's words, which I'm sure I can be accused of.
When President Trump gets sent back to Mar-a-Lago, the very first individual that jumped on the Ron DeSantis train, the Israel First train, was Ben Shapiro. And those are the darkest days we had. In 21 and 22, you guys were there. He's consistently been against Trump, and now that President Trump doesn't back the Greater Israel Project. What is Greater Israel? It's not about Israel itself. It's about an expansionist Israel, an imperial Israel that Netanyahu and that crowd have thought up. And the Israel First crowd is Ben Shapiro, Tel Aviv Mark Levin, and many others that want to put that ahead of America's interests.
Okay, I have to say, again, earlier in this talk, Steve Bannon does say nobody was more pro-Israel than Charlie Kirk, and nobody is more pro-Israel than me. Here he is pushing anti-Semitic, like the most kind of mainstream anti-Semitic crap that you get. You know, Israel is controlling our government. It's trying to push an Israel first thing, you know, policy, expansionist, greater Israel. I don't, he doesn't explain what he's talking about, but yeah, what do you think?
I think I think he's a dangerous guy. I mean, I think you're right. He knows his audience and he's playing to them. He's throwing out cliches and what do you call those bumper sticker type slogans that I think people can latch onto very easily without thinking. And he's whipping them up into an emotional state. And I mean, I never thought of him as a Hitler-esque type of character, and I think that comparing people to Hitler has been overdone over the last few years to the point where it's almost meaningless. But I did see a resemblance. I've seen many speeches that Hitler's done, and I did see a resemblance. I mean, he's certainly hitting all the right buttons for the people there, all the right slogans to get them aroused and out of their minds, not really thinking but feeling. And that's a dangerous dude. That's a demagogue right there, and using his demagoguery to inflame the conservative movement in general against Ben Shapiro. I mean, it's a scary anti-intellectual movement. And I agree with you, Razi, that it is becoming the majority, and I think they're disintegrating the Republican Party, and Ben's going to have no home there. So I'll say once again, he should come to the American Capitalist Party.
And I also believe No Holds Barred is available on DVD. Right?
Stop. All right,
it's a wrestling movie. I mean, the world needs to watch it.
Stop reminding me that I did that movie.
Alex, you know, the thing with the thing with Bannon, I mean, you don't think it's a serious threat. We disagree on that. I do think Bannon is you know, the best that the evil movement has in terms of ability, not in terms of morally. And yeah, I see that, and I see the type of crowd. I've seen some videos from, you know, the people in the lobby, and there's some video that was making the rounds where these two women were arguing backstage, and one of them is arguing against Nazis. You think you wouldn't have to argue that, but the other one is saying, well, it's part of our base. Nazis. That was the words they were using. This is not me calling somebody a Nazi. They were saying that, and again, that woman was. How big do you think that problem is?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that Steve Bannon has always been a person who, you know, his kind of, I would say, superpower is the ability to read a room, and to maybe pick up on subtle undercurrents. I mean, remember, he was the one that came up with the policy that, or the kind of the strategy that Trump was going to have to attract the Bernie guys, okay, like 50% of the Bernie voters, if he was going to actually win. And that was sort of his strategy with to kind of turn it into this populist working class movement, right? And he articulates it very well. And I think even one could argue executed it very well. But yeah, I didn't feel this. I felt it was a little bit try hard. I think as well, if we think about, you know, his characterizations of Ben Shapiro, and, you know, let's think about, you know, I'm just literally reading out the things that, you know, Andrew Breitbart stood for. Supported the legalization of prostitution, gay rights, drug liberalization. He supported U.S. military intervention in Syria, North Korea, Iran, China. I mean, come on, right? This guy was, I mean, not totally just revisionist history, what Steve Bannon is engaging in. And it's very pernicious. And if we even think about the legacy, okay, that this individual, has had on the culture, that's somebody who's a political heavyweight, I think. David Horowitz is a political heavyweight, okay, in terms of the kind of the legacy that they're going to have. Steve Bannon, I think people are going to certainly admire him in a kind of the same way that you admire some maniac that manages to discover something new by just being the craziest person they can possibly be, unpredictable, difficult to be around, right? I mean, this is the whole, I don't know, I just feel that, yes, he had his little kind of supporters and his little cheerleaders there. However, I think that we need to give people a little bit more credit to be a little bit more discerning. And the more that these individuals talk, the more that kind of, I mean, little Ben Shapiro rattled big Steve Bannon, rattled him to this point that he is really appearing to be personally injured and hurt, and kind of, this is I think people see through that. I think people see through that as in you are emotionally slighted, and it's having a tremendous effect on you. He's not treating this the same way. If you've ever seen Steve Bannon engage with somebody who's on kind of, who has a opposing political opinion to him, he is measured, he is clear, he is decisive. I saw this as flailing, emotional, and a little bit pathetic, actually. He looked weak. I think he looked weak.
James, I want to, oh yeah, go ahead, and then I want to.
I think very few people in the audience really believe this Israel wants to take over the world business. That is just such an obvious anti-Semitic assertion. It's part of the, Jews control everything, Jews control the world kind of BS. But to call
people believe that
Israel,
but it's dumb. It's just stupid.
It's just
like
dumb.
The Egyptian planes and the ARCUK killed
but
Charlie
there's
Kirk.
no
I had a
IQ
dream
test
about this.
at the
This is
voting
nonsense.
station.
Israelis should be Israel first. Americans should be America first. But that doesn't mean, in fact, being America
But
first
the two things
does
that they
not
meet. I mean,
exactly. Israel's interests and America's interests and foreign policy are aligned. See, that's the thing. When they put it this way, Israel first versus America first, what they're doing is they're saying there's a conflict of interest, where there really isn't one. On the scale of foreign policy and military policy, Israel's interests and America's interests are nicely aligned. So when they say that, what they're trying to do is intentionally drive a wedge between supporters of Zionists, let's call it the Zionist wing of the conservative movement, versus the non-Zionist wing of the conservative movement, the anti-Semitic cretins like Tucker Carlson. So what they're doing is they're sneaking in by verbal trickery the idea that our interests are somehow inherently in conflict with Israel's. That is dangerous. I'm not saying they're perfectly aligned. I'm not saying that they can never be different and diverge. What I'm saying is they're using cheap rhetorical tricks to drive a wedge of conflict of interest where there really isn't one. Israel's security is very intimately connected to America's security. And that's part that, as an American, that's why I want America to continue to give and sell weapons to Israel. Why I want America to still be on Israel's side. It's because I see that America's true interest, the true interest of Americanism, is on the side of defending Israel from its savage Islamic neighbors. Okay? That is the wedge that they're trying to drive through. No, America and Israel have different interests. Translate. The blah, 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 that came out of Bannon's mouth is our interests are inherently at conflict with Israel's. That is what he's trying to sneak in without naming it.
Okay, I just want to read a comment. Somebody says, "Shut the fuck up. You're all whiny losers. We all see you." Well, thank you for that. I don't think everybody sees us. That's the thing. If you look at our subscriber numbers, I mean, Megan Kelly wouldn't even reply if I were to slide into her DMs. So people like the show, comment, share it, make sure more of these people see us and see us calling them out. James, I want to read a comment that Alejandro left before the show started. He said, Shapiro is about to have his Winan moment. I hate to make the comparison because Winan is a giant and Shapiro is a miserable mediocrity. What do you think of the comparison? That is for people who have read The Fountainhead, and hopefully it's not too much of a spoiler. And James, if you can answer that without spoilers, that would be appreciated because, yeah, some people in our audience definitely haven't read The Fountainhead and should.
Right. I agree. There is a moral crisis here. There are two forces, a good force and a bad force, working within Ben Shapiro. And the good force is what dominated in this speech, even though there were some bad elements that, as we pointed out earlier, were confessed. And no, Shapiro, I don't think can be compared to Gail Winan. On the other hand, there's something going on right now, and a choice you have to make, Mr. Shapiro. Are you going to let the bad part of your consciousness control, or are you going to let the good part of your ideas control? That is, Alejandro, you're onto something there.
Yeah.
Without spoiling it, an important moral / psychological crisis moment, deflection point, is there for Ben Shapiro. I am with you. I'm not sanguine optimistic about the choice he'll probably make. But on the other hand, yeah, he is reaching a fork in his personal crossroads here. In fact, that would be the point I would stress right here to Republicans in general, seeing what's going on at the TPUSA conference. Sharp division is drawn here. If the Rubins and Shapiros don't win in general, that's the RIP for the Republican Party as far as I'm concerned. But even each of them within themselves, when they compromise with other Republicans, they have to really think about it, because you're going to sell your soul, without any spoilers, you're going to sell your soul if you stay true to a party that can tolerate the Tuckers and Candaces within their midst. Have that big tent. I don't care how big that tent is. I'm leaving if it's got Candace and Tucker in it. And every good person really must. And if it remains thus, and people like Ben Shapiro don't leave the tent, then they will have duplicated the tragedy of Gail Winan. Sorry, what happens to Gail Winan?
I was gonna say, whenever you say no spoilers as a preface, I'm like, a spoiler must be coming, intentional, unintentional. By the way, the person whose comment I read, if it wasn't clear, as a segue to encourage people to like and share and comment and subscribe, commented again, and he's a Nazi, like actual Nazi. Check it if you think I'm just calling people names. Look at his next comments. Thank you, Daniel, for the super chat. Daniel says, "Where's Jonathan to remind people that Candace is hot?" Yeah, that's why we don't have Jonathan on episodes where we discuss Candace anymore. Kidding. He was unavailable today.
But it's true of Megyn Kelly. God dang.
Well, that was the argument yesterday. We said that's a topic for another day. But
how hot they are does not determine whether I think they're right or not. There's actually the old saying, the hotter they are, the crazier they are. My brothers, I'm not sure that's true either.
On behalf of all crazy women, I'm offended.
But the point is, look, we have Alex right here. She's the living refutation that one can be both beautiful and brilliant. So,
where is he going with this? But it's a good time to bring in Daniel, who has joined us from behind the scenes and probably regretting it. Daniel, your initial thoughts on what we've been discussing so far?
Well, Candace is hot, but separately about Steve Bannon, he is the archetype, because yesterday I don't know if I said it on show or if I said it in the production meeting before, but I said that I wish Steve Bannon like dressed up and didn't look like a disgusting slob all the time. But then that is actually an archetype of a really good background politician. Is the Rasputin type. It's somebody who like looks disgusting, but is like controlling everything behind the scenes, which is somebody like Steve Bannon or even Alexander Dugin, like people like that really fit into that archetype. So I do find that interesting.
Thank you, Use Your Delusion, for gifting an Ayn Rand Center UK YouTube membership, and congratulations, Clementine, for receiving that membership. Jeff's earlier concern luckily didn't materialize here, although, as we see in the chat, there are opportunities in terms of bad people we don't want receiving it. I'm glad it went to Clementine. Yeah, I don't exactly, actually, I'm not going to say anything that I don't know, but I think it's people who are more active on the channel are more likely to get those memberships, but it is a risk, people. It could go to the wrong person. Daniel, speaking of the wrong person, are we going to watch some Tucker?
Yes, we can.
Most people agree with that. Most Americans have more in common with each other than they disagree on. And almost everybody agrees on that. And almost everybody is willing to tolerate a good faith argument about how to get there. Except a few. And they're the ones running around calling everyone an anti-Semite. But everyone else is like, yeah, of course, that should be the debate. And they'll vote for you. They want that because they know they haven't had that. That's the fact. And what you're watching now, attacking millions of Americans because they're Muslims, it's disgusting. And I'm a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I know there's a lot of effort to claim I'm a secret jihadi. I'm not. You should not attack people on those grounds. And you're seeing it from Republicans. What the hell are you doing? What you're doing is trying to divide the country. And I've lived through 50 years of this crap. All these fake race wars that they're always promoting. Oh, go hate each other while we loot the treasury. That's exactly what's going on. And most people are totally sick of that. So yes, there is a possibility for a huge coalition of decent people once they free their minds from the traps set for them by others and realize, wait a second, we all want to make this country better. And the 15% or 30%.
Others. I wonder who those others are. I am.
Well, he said those who call others anti-Semites.
Well, yeah. So Jews. So anyway, I'm in my early 40s. I think technically it's still early 40s. And so not that old, but I remember, I was already an adult when 9/11 happened, and the right, the president was a Republican, and the right was criticizing him for his soft, absolutely soft response to 9/11 and his horrible statement, which he made and then stood by, and which is a complete lie, that Islam is a religion of peace. Alex, how did we go from criticizing Bush for his weakness on Muslims and the threat they pose to Tucker on conservative stages?
I actually think that was a mistranslation. Yeah, I think he actually thought that, like, Salam, I really think that's why he thought it was the religion of peace. So I mean, just the mannerisms there. The worst way to convince somebody that you have a great idea that you wish to share is to be utterly frazzled and go, I just can't believe it. And then it came in, and then it did. And it was like a staccato in the way that he's totally, manic, actually. Manic. And he was big mad, right? Like all up in the feels. Okay. And just the outburst, to be honest, about Islam, it had zero connection to what he was talking about before. You were talking about, again, like, this sort of idea that he's trying to promote, that like we would all get on great. The Muslims, the Christians, all of the little tribes, we would all get on wonderful, and we would have a fabulous country if it wasn't for these goddamn Jews that are just trying to divide us, right? And we have zero problems with each other. I mean, from a philosophical perspective, right? I mean, they're conservative, we're conservative, and there's no reason why we shouldn't get along. And it's just these damn Jews that are just convincing us that we simply cannot exist together, right? Our ideas cannot exist together, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I mean, he kind of sounded like, I don't know, do you remember those memes of the kind of the, like, I don't know how to really say this in the right way, like, you know, memes of like libtard meltdown, right, over like a misgendering or something. That's what that reminded me of. Do you remember that gentleman in the wig who's like freaking out in the game shop going, "It's ma'am, it is ma'am," like, and it's like this big hulking guy, okay, and then as he's leaving, he like kicks down the, you know, the display. That was Tucker, what he just did there. And you know, this ma'am thing is, it's just disgusting, and it's just, you know, just saying the bad things about the Islam that we don't know. It was and again, like, who is he speaking about there? Again, I think he's speaking about his father. If you really think about like Dick Carlson and what he stood for and his ideas about Islam. I mean, he literally, Dick Carlson said, "You cannot defeat an enemy you refuse to understand, especially when that enemy tells you plainly what it believes and why it fights." I mean, you cannot really get a clearer, I would say, understanding than Dick Carlson.
Yeah, I'm becoming a fan of him just from hearing about him from you, although less a fan of his parenting results. But just, James, before I go to you, I have to, this is off topic, but I have to read this comment by Clementine, who says, "What? Razi looks way younger." Yes, I knew that gifted membership went to the right person. James, get back to the topic now.
Yeah. Tucker Carlson couldn't for the life of him connect the dots on things. The way women are treated in Muslim countries, the way gays are treated. Well, he kind of likes that. There's no gay pride parades at Qatar, which makes it, I guess, superior to New York or London in his mind. In his mind, he'd rather live in Qatar because, you know, after all, they don't have gay pride parades. So he's completely unable to connect the dots between the savage behavior they have, being ruled by theocrats and absolute monarchs, and their hatred for Western civilization. That is for you, Tucker. Tucker can't realize you're a Christian, you're on their hit list too. Muslims, as you know, and guess what? One can criticize Islam without saying that every Muslim is an evil person. Just as I can criticize your stupid, idiotic religion, Tucker, without criticizing everyone who believes it. I mean, there's a criticism implied right there. But not every Christian is even as whacked out as you are, Tucker. So critics of Christianity are not bigots. Critics of Islam are not bigots. No, Tucker, you've completely misunderstood it, and you've obscured it precisely so that we cannot connect the dots. The problem is not Christians and Jews killing a bunch of people. The problem today, because of their Christianity and Judaism, there may be some, I understand, but they are comparatively the exception to the vast number of systematic slaughters, terrorist attacks, wars broken out, rockets and missiles being lobbed at Israel, 9/11, October 7th. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Islamic culture is the problem. Tucker Carlson could never let himself articulate that. He is an Islamophile. You know, Islamophobe is an anti-concept. He is an Islamophile. People who cover up the truth, ignore the truth about the dominant way in which most Muslims practice their religion today is on the medieval savagery side. Now, that's where Tucker Carlson is value-wise at home. So, no, I sure hope that not everyone shares your end goal, which is going back to the Dark Ages, Mr. Carlson. We do not all share the same goal. No, sir. Not yours. No, and not all conservatives, I hope, And I would venture to, I'm not a conservative, but I would hope and venture to guess that not even all conservatives believe in going back to the Dark Ages. So no, we do not share goals. I do not share goals with someone who is self-blinded to the reality of what dominates the Muslim world today, or someone who thinks that a criticism of a religion is, and note this, Candace will hold up the Talmud. Anyone who studies this is the problem. Anyone who takes this seriously is the problem. All Jews can be denounced, but Muslims, no. You say most Muslims. If I were to say the truth to him about the way nearly every Muslim country is run and the way most Muslims support it, he would say, "Oh, you're such a hateful bigot." No, I am not. You're the whacked out collectivist, Tucker. You're the mystic. I can't believe it, because he'll get all self-righteous about his own bigotry. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, philosophy matters. Philosophy is key. You got to get your basic metaphysics and epistemology, use those fancy words. Got to get your view of reality and how we know it squared away first. Then your ethics squared away first. Then and only then can I begin to say we share common goals, Mr. Carlson. And can you then start taking apart the evil that is contained? Yeah, and guess what? The Jewish Bible and Talmud, the Christian Bible, and all kinds of Christian writers, the Quran, and all kinds of Hadith say some pretty awful things. It is the connection to that religion that causes the violence. Christians were monsters when they tortured people and burnt them at the stake. They don't do that anymore. Okay? Jewish people were monsters when they stoned people to death for thought crimes, uttering the name of Yahweh. Okay, that wasn't cool either. But the people who take their religion seriously today and who enact it in reality in life and death ways, that's Islam, Tucker. And you are utterly blind to the basic, overwhelming fact of life on Earth here in the 21st century. He is covering up for Islam, and he is an anti-Semitic bigot. And both of them are based on his religiosity, and he can't even put the dots together because, of course, if you pointed out that religiosity is what caused October 7th, or 9/11, or the suicide bomber phenomenon, or this love of martyrdom among Islam. Yeah, it does not surprise me that Tucker is more comfortable in Qatar than he would be in a Western city.
Yeah. Ideology in the chat says intellectuals on the panel are looking for an intellectual answer to the Tucker phenomenon, whereas plumbers and electricians are saying follow the Qatari money. First of all, we're not ignoring the Qatari issue. If you look at the last time we did an episode where Tucker was the topic, we were talking about it. But also, first of all, we don't actually have any proof that he is getting money from Qatar. I think it's likely. It would not surprise me if somebody could prove that he's not. That would surprise me, but that's not the issue. The Qatari government can offer me a lot of money now to change ARC's UK's direction and become pro-Palestine. It's not going to happen. You still make the choice that you're gonna shift your brand to completely shilling for Qatar. That is a choice. And the Tucker phenomenon isn't just what Tucker says, it's the audience that he gathers around him, which was interesting here. Again, they cheered for some of the stuff. They did not cheer for the Muslim stuff, which is a bit of a problem for him. But yeah, also there was another comment.
Ayn Rand was once offered $1 million to help spread her ideas if only she would add a religious element to her thought. Yeah. She immediately, to her, it wasn't even a question. No, people are not always motivated by money. People are not always, even if when you do find money, money is not look, tell me how a suicide bomber is motivated by money. No, they're giving their whole life away because of their mysticism. And it's only mysticism going to be, no, ideas are what control history. And people are willing to put up with a lot of crap, including periods of privation and poverty, in order to achieve their moral ideal.
Yeah.
Self-sacrifice really happens.
Suicide bombers are absolutely not motivated by money, but I'm sure their families appreciate the taxpayer money that we end up giving them. Clementine says, well, they would probably say Israel did 9/11. Not probably, they do.
They've said it.
Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't both Tucker and Candace, aren't they both pushing the Jews did it line when it comes to 9/11? Or
I mean, with these people, they might never. I mean, Candace, I think, might outright say it. Tucker probably not. But Tucker has a whole documentary on 9/11. that the Young Turks has talked about how, oh, he's posing interesting questions. Maybe the
Yeah, I'm
State
sure.
Department
letting
should
him
look into
on
it.
the TPUSA stage, just like letting Tucker speak at the Republican National Convention last year, is on the Republicans. I don't care what you think, Megyn Kelly. The Republicans are morally responsible for the speakers they put up. And if at the Republican National Convention or at Turning Point USA, they have Tucker Carlson there, and consider the really just, I mean, it's over the line. The guy is so disconnected from reality. It's not just demons, it's UFOs, and UFOs are spiritual forces, attacking the world. And so if you guys can't have the judgment to say, no, he's never going to speak here before, but rather sanction him with a speech, yeah, Megyn Kelly, I can judge the Republican Party. I can join Turning Point, judge Turning Point USA. You're damn right I can judge them just for having a speaker that monstrous on. And it is monstrous insanity, total irrationality. I mean, the opposite of intellectualism. No, what they need, plumbers, and it's back to the commentator there, people who are plumbers and carpenters, they are absolutely controlled by philosophy. And the less they're aware of that, the more they are helplessly controlled by philosophy rather than their own self-conscious consideration of philosophic ideas. And is those philosophic ideas, that's where the action is. And yeah, I know it's insulting to call these philosophic ideas, but it's his religious mystic approach that shapes everything. And he's gone so far over that I will negatively judge anyone who associates with Tucker Carlson or thinks he's a legitimate voice on anything. He is a totally irrational mystic. He's as bad as, think of the worst kind of cult leaders and irrationality that they, the end is near and they predict that, the Messiah will arrive at 12 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So you better all get ready. He's that much of a, the sandwich board, doom is nigh kind of guy. Tucker Carlson is mentally giving you no better than some drug-addicted, psychotic, homeless person on the streets ramblings. And you better treat him like that, or I'm going to judge you, Miss Kelly.
Daniel, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
Well, I mean, again, specifically on Tucker, what he said here, it's, well, even the way he starts, right? Everybody agrees with each other, but the Jews who are dividing us. Then, I mean, even the way, I'm wondering, and I don't even have to wonder, like, what were the Republicans from 10 years ago? Because even, like, Republicans right now, because he's like, hating Muslims. We never did that. Really? That's like a memo of Republicans for a long time. And to some extent wrong, to some extent bad. But it's like, come on, go 10 years ago. People talking about Barack Hussein Obama. Like, come on. Like, the idea that the Jews have done all this is insane. But, like Chandler in the chat said, Tucker must be pretty hot because he's crazy AF. So that's
I think it only works with one gender.
Oh, I thought you mean it only works one way. But yeah, then sort of, I guess, wrapping up, it's always, what are the values of Republican Party? Like, what is stuck? What is I never really watch or have never really watched fully like a Democratic National Convention or anything in that regard because I like myself too much. But maybe I should. Because I want to compare it to what extent even Democrats are united by any sort of values. But yeah, here it's like who is that? Like who is looking at Tucker as like a conservative or a Republican and saying like that's my guy. That's the guy I want to see as the future of America. Like he has nothing to me. And even if I was like a conservative, even if I was like a Ben Shapiro type, I'm like looking at Tucker and it's like, what is he? What is he giving us?
And where can people find you?
Now you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damned Dan.
Alex, parting thoughts, and where can people, or anything you want to promote?
Yeah, listen, I mean, just to sort of push Dick Carlson again, I mean, his sort of principle was that you cannot defeat an enemy that you refuse to describe. And I find that kind of interesting with Tucker because he is talking about this kind of indescribable, omnipresent enemy yet failing to properly and accurately point it out and describe it, which I find very interesting. I also find it quite interesting that, this is a man who is supposedly like a very, wholly convicted Christian who would, go to Qatar, as he said, and buy property and practice his faith in private, in secret, erect a cross nowhere, proselytize to nobody. If you have a friend and you want to talk to him about, Christ, you can't do that there. I mean, how pathetic. I mean, I even, I'd like to think of myself as more of a proud Christian than that. I mean, I certainly would, I reserve the right to go and proselytize people about Christianity if I so please, which I, do not. It's utterly pathetic. And I don't think he's actually shelled out for money. I think he's done all of this for free. To do it for money, it actually, for me, it would be a little bit better, to have sold everything down the river. And I'm going to recommend actually Freedom for the Defense of Democracies, which Dick Carlson was actually chairman of. And I also want to recommend a lot of his stuff on Voice of America as well. Hopefully, more people can read about this and actually kind of, understand, some better philosophy from a Carlson out there.
Just trolls in the chat. When you fill your comment with expletives, I have to manually approve them for them to go through. Just so you know, I do other things during shows, so that doesn't always happen. You can if you want to. We will approve those comments, but yeah, it'll take a while. James.
Yeah, I very much agree with what Daniel and Alex both said. I can be found here, and if you are a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK, which you really all ought to be, you can take advantage of certain perks. And one of the perks is something we did earlier today, a seminar on objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand, the masterwork on the subject by Dr. Leonard Peikoff. If you want to understand the philosophy if you're unlike the trolls and are perhaps interested in what is the philosophical grounding of the comments you're hearing here, no better place to learn it than from that book. And we're doing seminars on that book every Sunday. So please do consider becoming a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK. You'll get the background on the philosophy that informs this channel. And, we're the most consistent voice on the topic of Israel, indeed on international affairs generally, indeed on whatever subject we take up. So, but that's because we're informed by a certain philosophy. If you want to learn about that, objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand, please become a paid subscriber.
Phil Turney, that's the anti-Semitic propagandist who Candace gave her platform to let him spew his lies. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's absolute lies that he's pushing. Well, it is a conspiracy theory as well, but it's 100% made up, and we're gonna go through a debate that he did. It's, as far as I know, the only debate that he did. I don't expect him to do any more debates after that. I think he's much more comfortable talking to Candaces who don't really question anything he says. But yeah, that debate did expose him, did expose the USS Liberty theory, conspiracy theory for what it is. And yeah, we're gonna talk about that tomorrow. There is a video about the USS Liberty on this channel. We did a show, I believe it was earlier this year. There's also a short by James Valiant that just in the last few days has been getting hundreds and hundreds of views. Part of what inspired me to decide to do another show about it, because we never really broke down this person's specific lies. So we will do that. And Linda Cordair in the chat reminds me that AmFest, Turning Point USA's AmFest, is not the only conference you can attend. It certainly isn't the best one. The Irreplaceable Spark Conference 2 is happening on October 17th and 18th of next year. Early bird prices are available now. There is a link somewhere, I'm sure, or there will be one. Well, it's objectivism.co.uk, so it's pretty easy to remember. Make sure you get your tickets. We have Linda will be speaking there. Jonathan Honig will be speaking. And Michael Leibowitz. I don't have a clever Michael Leibowitz related joke, although I did promise him that I'm going to fill these 10 months that we have with all sorts of trolling comments about him. So, yeah. Anyway, Spirit Airlines is waiting for your trip, Michael, to Austin. We'll see you there. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for joining me on the panel. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Daily Objective, the reality show where we'll talk about Phil Turney. And then Tuesday, James and I will talk about Megyn Kelly with a more historical perspective as a follow-up to the show we did Friday. We'll see you then.
Be safe.